Hi, how are you?
So I'm good. I'm good. This
Good.
is a slightly different type of show than what we've done for the previous four, but we decided that we are going to do 2 episodes a week. So one long episode where we just chat about things that we're interested in the moment, some crafting stuff, and then we're going to do a second episode which will be a Q&A episode where you can answer questions that people have for you. And it'll be a shorter one, but it'll be an opportunity for people to submit questions and get answers to any crafting inquiries that they have.
And I think that is fantastic because the channel is so tutorial based, there's always questions. And if you go down into my comments, you can always see there's people asking questions. Well, can I use this? Should I do this? So this is kind of nice because you can go in and you can pick out some of those most popular questions and I can answer them.
And that is exactly what I did. I went into your YouTube comments and picked out questions. And some might have already been answered by you, but just to that individual person. So I
Yeah.
think it's worth putting those questions out into the open for anyone to hear because they might have the same question.
Yeah. And to that point, I try and I'm still doing pretty good. And it might take a little bit of, a little bit of time, but I try to personally go into my comments and answer every comment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're watching a video and you have a question on a technique or how to source something, be a little bit patient, but I eventually get through them all and I answer them. So this is also great too because it kind of likes a fast track to get some answers if you're looking
Yeah.
for stuff.
Except hate comments. Although you do answer those sometimes.
Sometimes, if I'm being like kind of smart, I will.
Yeah. But guess what? No one cares that this isn't your style, Karen.
I know. I know.
Move on.
I try to sometime. And a lot of times what we do, I'll tell people what we do. If we have some that is really good, like a really good snarky comment or hate, unfortunately, guys, if you're leaving those, we will I will copy them and paste them into our group chat and then we will ridicule you over there.
Yeah. Just as a general note, don't leave hate comments. No
No.
one really cares.
It's
Everyone's
mean.
laughing.
Everyone's laughing at you and it's mean. And I actually I was always taught any engagement is good engagement. So if you're leaving me a nasty comment, it's increasing engagement and it's making my video go out to more people. So go for it.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so your Q&A questions for today,
Okay.
question and answer that I pulled from your YouTube videos. Before we start, I will say once this goes live, if you have a question for next week's episode, these are going to go out Monday morning. So once this becomes live, comment your question on this video and I'll pull questions from here.
Great idea.
Yeah, so people can, if you're listening to this and you have a question that you've been wanting to answer, put them below. I'll post some questions. Also, they don't have to be just crafting questions. If you have a question about where you get your glasses, you can put
How,
that in there too.
how do you start a YouTube channel? When did you start? Anything.
What's your favorite color?
I'm not very good at relationship advice, but
Don't
let's
ask mom about
don't ask.
relationships.
Oh no, that's not
That's for a later, longer podcast. My divorce story.
good. No.
No. Okay, into the questions. So,
Okay.
the first question I found, which I think is a question that a lot of people ask, and I actually think that we touched on it in the previous podcast, but when using Mod Podge in a craft, can you substitute with Elmer's glue for a more inexpensive option?
Great question, Kirsten. Wow.
Thank you.
So the Mod Podge that you buy at the um, craft store is it has additives in it that you can't put in a homemade recipe. So here's the
Mm,
thing with homemade Mod Podge. You can make homemade Mod Podge that is very easy to make. I have a full tutorial on how to do it, but it's really good for decoupaging, but it's not good for transferring images.
mm,
So if you just want to get into decoupaging, then you don't need to buy Mod Podge. You can just make the homemade recipe, which is Elmer's glue and water and just the right ratio, and you're golden. But if you want to be doing image transfers or you want to seal up a project, then I would lean towards using store-bought Mod Podge.
Okay. And to anyone who is interested, you do have a video on how to make your own Mod Podge,
I do,
right?
100%. And if you're watching this video podcast with not the audio, it'll be down in the description, and we'll make sure to add that so you can watch it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So basically, the answer is yes, but also no. Depends on what you're doing.
That is kind of, yeah. And it really depends on the project that you're doing. If you're just doing decoupage, make your homemade. If you're doing image transfer, then make sure that you're buying store bought.
Final answer.
That's my final answer.
Okay. Dun dun dun. Remember, what is that? If you want to be a millionaire?
Yeah. Who wants to be a millionaire?
Who wants to be a millionaire? Okay, next question.
Can I call a friend? Do you
Sure.
want to call?
Who do you want to call? That depends on if I let you make the phone call or not.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
Why use a laser printer versus an inkjet printer for photo transfers? And can you use an inkjet printer if that is all you have?
Okay. This is probably one this is probably one of the most common questions
Yes.
asked, because most people, I would say it's getting more so more people have laser printers because they're cheaper to use. You can let the toner goes a lot further in a laser printer than the ink goes in an inkjet printer. So more people, if they're doing a lot of printing, have laser printers. So if you're wanting to get into image transfers, which you'll see a lot on my channel, either doing graphics or photos or quotes and transferring them onto wood or canvas or painted surfaces, then you want to use a laser printer. Does it work with an inkjet printer? Yes, it does, but it's tricky. And you have to go a lot slower. You have to use a lot less water. It's going to transfer a little bit more faded. It can be done, but if you're going to be doing a lot of transfers like that, invest in a laser printer.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you're doing an image transfer with a laser printer, don't use your homemade Mod Podge.
No, because it will not exactly, because it won't transfer. It just doesn't transfer well. I have fooled around with it a little bit, and you can get it too, but it's just a lot of work. And just go buy some Mod Podge to do the transfer. And laser printers are coming down in price a lot. They're not as expensive as they used to be. You can pick up a good laser printer for under $200. Look on Marketplace. Sometimes you can even pick them up used. And if you are limited to an inkjet printer, you can make it work. It's going to be a little bit more tricky. You're going to have maybe a little ink run here and there, but it can be done. And again, I think I have 2 comparison videos using the inkjet versus the laser printer. And we can put those down below too, because I show you right side by side the difference between the two and how I create one opposed to the other, and the struggles that what it takes to make both work.
Perfect. Well, there you go. Final answer on that one as well.
That's it.
The next one, kind of on the photo transfer vein as well. Can you use magazine pages for a photo transfer?
100% yes.
Fun.
Yes. And I have everything that you're asking me. I have full videos on how
Well,
to
it's
do this,
almost like I got the comments from your videos.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was the whole. So I did a magazine transfer onto a piece of what was it? Cardstock maybe. And yeah, it's very easy to do, and it does transfer nice. The only thing that you have to be careful with if you're using magazine pages and you're doing a transfer with Mod Podge is if there's words on the paper, those words will be backwards.
Oh, true. Good point. So it's better for an image if you're cutting stuff out of a magazine, maybe depending on what look you're going for, but go for an image, not words.
Yeah. And even that image is going to be backwards.
Yeah.
but it's not as bad as if you have words because your words will be definitely backwards if you're using a magazine page.
And I guess there's not really a way around that.
Mm-mm. The
No.
only way that if you have a magazine, here's one way around it, and then it's not really a magazine transfer, is you could take a photocopy
Mm.
on your laser printer of that magazine page and then and then reverse it in your Google Docs or your Word program and then do the transfer. And then you would have your words the right way.
So if it's something that you really, really like, then it might be worth those extra steps to do it so you can have it go the right way. But if you're
Yeah.
just looking for kind of an image in like a collage scenario,
Yeah. And the
easy
other
peasy.
nice thing about doing it that way is you're not ruining your original, right?
True.
Because
If
you're
it's like
not
a
doing
vintage magazine or something.
right. So you can always have that original magazine page and not ruining it just doing photocopy after, and you can do multiple after that. You have to kind of be careful with the only thing you have to kind of be careful about with that is copyright issues. So if you are, and there's piles, if you actually, that video with where I did the magazine transfer, it's like a dumpster fire in the comments there because
Of
people were,
copyright?
yeah, of copyright issues. Like you can't use that because it's an original copy. And I think from what I can understand, I'm not a lawyer, but if you're using it for your own personal projects,
Yeah, I don't see the
yeah.
only issue you would ever run into is if you are like selling it as your creation.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're just doing a transfer for a junk journal and it's your junk journal, you're fine. Don't be doing magazine transfers and then trying to sell them. That's probably not the way to go.
Yeah.
Did that
Again, we're
answer it?
not lawyers. Don't take
Yeah.
our legal advice, but
Yeah.
that seems like a pretty common sense
But there
answer.
was
So,
some really, really good comments in that video from people that knew a lot more than me that gave some really good advice. So
mm,
go into the comments and read them
if you're interested,
if
if
you're
you're
interested.
wanting to do that and you're maybe
Yeah.
gonna sell some stuff for
Yeah.
sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so now beyond photo transfer, I guess. But when you are making homemade cutting boards
Yes.
and you want to seal them, how can you seal them while also being food safe?
Great question.
Great question.
I know. So I
It's
have
almost
done
like I know how to do my job really well.
really well. That's right. So I've got videos where I've made the homemade cutting boards, and some of the videos they're just decor only.
Mhm.
Anything that I've done an image transfer or I've done a fancy painting technique on a cutting board, those are not food safe. So that's just for decor to prop up in your kitchen and have it look nice on the wall. Don't go cutting your vegetables on it because it's not food safe. But if you have found an old cutting board at the thrift store, but it's kind of gotten stained up or it's got lots of really deep cutting marks in it, give it a light sand. And then the one thing that I use all the time is mineral oil
Yeah.
and just you coat it with some mineral oil. It's food safe, and then you're good to go and use your cutting board again. You can buy products, and I know you have done like you do your cutting boards a lot. You
Well, cuz
re-oil them.
I have a mineral oil. Now I have Booze mineral oil,
Yeah,
BOOS. You can pick it up Amazon,
yeah,
maybe even like at your hardware store or something. But I use it to uh, like oil my wooden cutting boards and all my wooden utensils. So like
yeah,
my spoons and spatula, your salad bowls. That's
yeah.
you really need to oil your wooden salad bowls to like so your dressing doesn't soak in. But that's the same stuff that I'm assuming you can use for that.
Yeah, and they're going to be food grade. If you have any issues and you're trying to find a product, the best thing is to go to your hardware store and ask someone there in that department what they recommend to use as a sealer that's going to be food grade. But as soon as you introduce anything like Mod Podge or paint or
Yeah.
like no, you're done. It's not food safe anymore. So
Yeah, and from my experience in that, from like a little bit different of an application, because I do have a lot of stuff that I oil pretty regularly. Um, is you do have to go and buy mineral oil because you can't just put like olive oil on it because
No,
it will
yeah.
go rancid.
Yeah, exactly. You have to use the right product. So, and that's what I did myself when I started doing projects like this is I went to my hardware store and I said, what's the best product for me to seal up my cutting boards again and make them, but keeping them still food safe. And mineral oil was the first thing that came up. But again, there's lots of products there that are food safe. So head to the
Yeah.
hardware store.
It also makes them look really nice too because it brings out the wood grain again, and
Yeah.
it's a way of kind of like if you have also this is probably a crafting tip if you find something at a thrift store that maybe has a little bit of like a rougher surface, but it's really good quality wood, and you can tell if you just like sand it down a little bit of mineral oil will like bring out that wood grain again, and it'll look really nice.
Remember that big wooden bowl that you had? Well, you probably still have it.
I
And
still have it, yeah.
yeah, and it had gotten really, really dry, and
I
we
hadn't did
added
it in a long time, yeah.
yeah, and we added that oil, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
gorgeous now." Yeah,
But that also another tip is you will find so many of those at the thrift store because people don't realize that
yeah,
that's the upkeep of them.
yeah,
So then all of a sudden they look really bad, they look old, they look worn out, and all it needs is just like a little I don't know what it's called or where you buy, but it's like a little coarse sponge, almost like a Brillo pad.
mhm,
And you just kind of it's a very light sand, you do all over, you brush it off, coat of mineral oil, and they're good to go.
yeah, and it really perks up and brings out the wood grain, so
Mhm.
easy
You
peasy.
can get like very, very, very nice full wooden kitchen stuff
Yeah,
and decor stuff and bring it back to life with that. Well,
exactly.
that was like 3 tips in 1 with that question.
There you go.
Next question.
Okay.
Why in certain projects would you choose to use chalk paint over spray paint?
Um, so that's a completely different painting technique and a completely different look when you're done. That chalk paint is going to leave a chalky finish. It's going
Mhm.
to be a thicker paint look. And where the spray paint is just you're also going to have to if you're painting something with spray paint, it's going to take a lot more spray paint to cover something than using chalk paint. So from a money saving perspective, I always go to chalk paint. If there's something that I need to do quickly and I want it to dry quickly and it's not very big, then you can use a spray paint. But it's going to leave that thinner, more I almost want to say IKEA look. You know what I mean? Like it just gives it
Mm,
more of that cheaper kind of finish than using the chalk paint. Again, that's just 100% just preference.
yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And it might be ease of use as well. Like spray paint, you're gonna want to go outside or go in
Yeah.
your garage. Whereas chalk paint, like you don't have because it's not aerosol, you don't have that same issue. So
Yeah, exactly. So I think it just would be a matter of just what look you're trying to achieve and how economical you want the project to be.
for sure. And again, it is just style preference.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Well, those were all the questions I
All
had
right.
for this first
Yeah,
Q&A episode.
that was good questions. I like this. Actually, it's a really great idea for because it's just an easier way for maybe even people weren't even thinking about these questions, but now they get answered and they're like, "Oh, okay, I never thought about that."
Yeah. And again, if you're interested in this episode, they're going to be shorter than our kind of long episodes, but these will come out every Monday. Our full-length episode of the podcast will come out every Thursday. This one will be straight to the point. The Thursday one, we'll have some stories, we'll
We'll
have some chats, some
ramble.
back and forth. We'll yap and ramble a little bit more, but
Yeah.
still talk about things that everyone wants to listen to. So again, if you do have questions for next Monday's episode, whether it's crafting stuff, painting, the best products, or just a question that you want to hear us answer, then you can put those comments down below and I'll pick 5 or 6 out of those comments to ask in the next episode. If anyone
Okay.
has any questions for me, I like your toque. Where'd you get your toque?
I
I don't
do
remember,
like
but
your
those are the
toque.
questions.
I do like your toque. It's cute. Maybe
It's
I'll wear a toque next episode. You and I can have matching toques.
I'm wearing a toque because my hair
You
looks like
realize that that's really Canadian, and people might not know what a toque is.
yeah. See, that's what I mean. Well, a toque is what are they? A beanie, I
A
guess.
beanie, yes.
A beanie.
Yes,
A toque in Canada is a beanie.
yes.
Um, yeah.
All right. Well,
But
we're wrapping up.
wrap it up. So again, if you want to listen to our podcast, you can find it on YouTube and Mom's main channel or her podcast feed. You can also listen to it wherever you listen to your podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, all of the above. And I think that's it.
Perfect. All right. Love
Okay.
you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.